Welcome to today's Explainer. We're breaking down this absolutely wild experiment in human endurance, psychology, and honestly, just sheer willpower. We're looking at an intense wilderness challenge where two total strangers are dropped into the middle of nowhere, and they're fighting two battles, right? One against the brutal elements of nature, and a second, much tougher one against their own minds. Okay, let's dive into this.
$10,000. I mean, just think about that for a second. That is the staggering daily stake of this challenge. Every single 24 hours, a briefcase packed with exactly 10 grand literally drops from the sky on a parachute. There's no finish line here, no maximum payout. The only limit on the cash they could walk away with, it was entirely based on their own capacity to suffer. So I want you to put yourself directly in those boots for a minute. Picture this. You're standing at a drop-off point in some freezing, remote forest. You have no clue where you are. And the person standing right next to you, you've literally never met them before in your entire life. That was the reality for our two guys, Haze and Grizz. Suddenly, their ability to tolerate not just the brutal wilderness, but each other was tied to potentially infinite wealth. So how long could you do it?
Section 1. The ultimate survival premise.
So to understand the gravity of this, let's look at the setup. It sounds deceptively simple. Two strangers, 5 days of basic food rations, a couple of tarps, some warm clothes, a fire starter, and 2 containers of water. That is it. If they want out, they have one single flare gun. The second that flare goes up into the sky, the challenge ends for both of them, and they split whatever cash they've banked straight down the middle. Now, doing the math, Haas and Grizz looked at this and set a crazy ambitious goal right on day one. Stay for an entire year. That would mean a mind-blowing $3.6 million to split. But you know, having a mathematical goal and actually surviving the wilderness, yeah, those are two very different things.
Section 2. Battling the elements. Now, what's really interesting about this is how quickly reality shattered those day one delusions of grandeur.
The physical toll was immediate. I mean, it was ruthless. Day 1, they're sleeping on pine needles in freezing weather. Fast forward to day 4, desperation kicks in, and they're boiling and drinking stagnant swamp water just to stay hydrated. By day 9, those 5 days of rations, completely gone. They are literally starving, resorting to chewing on wild leaves. The hunger gets so bad that on day 10, they have to make a massive financial sacrifice. They spend $50,000 of their hard-earned prize money on a survival crate, just to get some beans, spices, and fishing gear. And here's the kicker. Even with the gear, they don't catch anything for over 2 weeks. They finally pull in a single eel on day 27.
But hey, humans are incredibly adaptable, right? The guys managed to shift out of pure panic mode and started establishing a real, sustainable long-term base camp. Step 1 was getting the heck away from that stagnant swamp. Hatters actually stumbled upon a creek, which meant moving water and, more importantly, potential fish. Step 2, they used dead trees and parachute cords to build this massive reinforced A-frame shelter, complete with a raised pine needle bed to get off that freezing ground. And finally, Step 3, they engineered an actual fishing dock right over the creek. They were quite literally building a civilization from scratch out there.
Section 3. The cost of comfort.
As their physical camp got better, a whole new battle kicked off: psychological warfare. The cost-benefit analysis of their extreme willpower here is absolutely fascinating. The game masters were constantly tempting them with crazy expensive comforts. Freezing night? How about one sleeping bag for 10 grand, or 2 for 50 grand? Rejected. Later on, a literal pop-up general store appears offering firewood, hammocks, cooking supplies, 10 grand an item. Again, they rejected the whole shebang. They were even offered a fully functional boat loaded with Zaxby's chicken for 40 grand. Reject. They displayed borderline superhuman discipline to protect that cash pile. The only, and I mean the absolute only temptation they caved on was spending 10 grand on day 40 to get a brief visit from their wives and kids. And the reason they could say no to that $40,000 boat? Pure human ingenuity. To reach a better fishing spot downriver, Hayes actually built his own floating frame out of gathered sticks and wrapped it in their spare tarp. It was basically a makeshift death trap, but hey, it floated. The irony here is just brilliant. By risking a swim in freezing swamp water on a pile of twigs, he effectively earned them $40,000.
Section 4. The psychological breaking point. As the weeks rolled on and the weather finally warmed up, the physical threat of freezing was replaced by something way more insidious. The real enemy became isolation. You'd think spring would be a relief, right? Wrong. Spring brought a whole new set of nightmares to the camp. Warmer weather meant snakes, and massive rats started terrorizing them every single night. These constant pest invasions led to severe sleep deprivation. And look, when you strip away someone's sleep, you completely strip away their patience.
The interpersonal friction really started cracking their newly formed friendship. At one point, over a super minor miscommunication about fixing fishing lines, Harsey just snapped. He packed up his makeshift stick boat, paddled down the river, and temporarily ran away to set up his own isolated camp just to get a break from Grizz. And this brilliantly illustrates how, as they crossed the 70-day mark, their internal motivations had completely diverged. Grizz was driven by a hard mathematical goal. He wanted to hit exactly 100 days so they could walk away with an even $1 million. But Hasse? His goal was purely emotional. Ever since that brief family visit back on day 40, his psychological anchor had completely shifted back to his wife and his newborn son.
That divergence led to a terrifying emotional decline for Hasse. He was really spiraling. Now, early in the game, to stop themselves from making impulse decisions, they'd actually disassembled the flare gun and split the pieces between them. But Hasse's desperation hit such a peak that he secretly dug into Grizz's bag and stole the other half of the flare gun. As he held it, he said, "I just gotta shoot this thing, and I get to be a dad again." He was entirely broken by the isolation.
So, it comes down to the ultimate choice. Before firing, Hasse confronts Grizz. He confesses he has the whole flare gun. He admits he just can't take it anymore. And in that moment, the power dynamic shifts entirely over to Grizz. Grizz has to make the call. Does he try to manipulate his exhausted, mentally drained friend into toughing it out for 30 more days just to hit that $1 million mark, or does he let all that money go? Faced with a friend in deep distress, Grizz didn't even hesitate. Looking right at Hasse, who was actively apologizing for letting him down, Grizz replied with this incredible quote, "Brothers don't let each other down." He realized that Hasse's mental health and his family were vastly more important than hitting some mathematical milestone. And honestly, this is the core takeaway of this entire explainer. In the absolute darkest, most extreme conditions, human empathy, profound connection, and a newfound brotherhood ultimately outweighed infinite wealth. Grizz took the flare and fired it into the sky.
And that single shot secured them their final, life-changing haul. $670,000. For 74 grueling days of extreme starvation, freezing nights, drinking swamp water, and intense psychological endurance, these two total strangers walked out of those woods as brothers, incredibly wealthy and deeply, deeply changed.
It's an unbelievable testament to human endurance, for sure. But it brings the question right back to you. Watching this, seeing the intense hunger, the freezing cold, the mental breakdowns, and the literal astronomical amounts of cash dropping from the sky, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder about your own mental fortitude. Be completely honest with yourself. When would you have fired the flare gun? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what you're truly capable of.